Okay, good morning. I thought we would try to finish Prince Puggly of Spud and the Kingdom of Spiff, so you guys could take a test on it when they figure that all out. So I'm going to start kind of a little bit behind where everybody is, so you can kind of remember what happened. Puggly and Princess Francesca just got to Spud, and they had to explain what happened and remember all the people were mad at him, and then after they explained, then they let him in. Okay, so they forgave him. So now we're on chapter 11, The Strangest, Most Curious Coat. Okay. After bathing and dressing when Puggly was done, his clothing was perfect. It was second to none. Perfect, of course, in the Spudlian mode, like a bomb full of color had come to explode. Come on, Franny, he said. Let me show you the hall, the shelves and the book. I'll show you them all. The princess at first was rather beguiled. She wandered the stacks. She chuckled and smiled. Amazing, she said, reading spine after spine. Your collection is nearly as mammoth as mine. Nearly, however, it was the pivotal word. As she said it, something surprising occurred. She suddenly frowned. This is awful, she said. Every book you've got here, I've already read. She began to feel dizzy. She started to sway. It felt like her insides were floating away. The room started spinning. It shimmered and swirled. Have I read? She cried out. Every word in the world? No, she had not. There were plenty more left. There was no need to act so absurdly bereft. Excuse me, said someone just off to the rear. The voice was so soft it was tricky to hear. You need something to read? Did I hear you right? I think there's a chance I might help with your plight. Who said that? Asked Franny, for she was surprised. In the corners she saw that the shadows disguised a very small room, like a closet or booth. It was more like a crypt, to tell you the truth. It's my granny, said Puggly. You met her before. To be honest, she's not really part of the tour. She says she's been writing her memoirs back there. If she's telling the truth, it's a lengthy affair. For years she's been scribbling like she'll never be done on so many notebooks. They must weigh a ton. Though I can't say what's in them, I have to confess the ravings of a lonely old woman, I guess. Balderdash, boy, was his granny's reply. Lonely old ravings? Why, that is a lie. It's not merely scribblings. It's not blah, blah, blah. It's the whole of my life. It's the legend of moi. She peeked out at Franny and beckoned her close. Come here, she summoned. I'll give you a dose. I've got it all here. Every salient breath, every triumph and failure, from birth until death. Francesca stepped forward, peering into the gloom. What she saw was a desk in a shadowy room. Those scrolls, she said sadly, they're only a few. I could read that whole stack in a minute or two. Puggly's granny said, These? I wrote them just now. This is all of the paper my space would allow, but a great many more can be easily found in my biography vault under the ground. Wait, Puggly sputtered. Is there something I missed? A biography vault? Does it really exist? His granny retorted, Of course it does, boy. I love it down there. It's my ultimate joy. Didn't you know? She asked with a smirk. There are tombs down below where I've hidden my work. With that, his great-granny leaned back on her seat. With the help of her cane, she rose to her feet. From a drawer she retrieved a jangle of keys. This way, she said, with a cough and a wheeze. She tottered unsteadily over the floor, to the rear of the room, to a shadowy door. She opened it up. It led to a ledge. Slowly the woman limped out to the edge. She paused, then she flipped on a switch to ignite torches that kindled with flickering light. Below them spread out a most marvelous space, with shelves running madly all over the place. Like a miniature city, a miraculous sprawl. It was 10 times the size of Library Hall. Puggly was shocked from his eyebrows on down. They shot up so high they were crowding his crown. All this by yourself? Prince Puggly began. But when? It seems so impossible, Gran. You had to have started this ages ago. But where did you hide it, is what I'd like to know. How is it possible? How could I miss my very own Gran writing something like this? The old woman smiled. It's not really so hard. It's easy, in fact, in a certain regard. All it takes is hard work, by night and by day, in quite a collected and diligent way. Yet still poor old Puggly was taken aback. Now wait, he insisted. We lived in a shack. Where were you writing this then? No, were you writing this then when we lived on the moors? How is it possible? All of it's yours. It is, shrugged his Gran in a casual way. She seemed unconcerned and even blasé. Of course it's all mine. What's the matter with you? That shack had a cellar. I thought that you knew. If not, I suppose it might strike you as weird, but that shack was far bigger than at first it appeared. The basement was massive, you can take it from me. It was fairly impressive architecturally. My memoir's been there since before you were born. That's why the pages are tattered and worn. When we moved to the palace, I wanted them near, so I sent every carriage to bring them all here. So that's how it happened, the woman professed. I wrote everything down. I'm a little obsessed. I might even be crackers, she said with a wink. I'm an autobiographaholic, I think. That's for sure, Franny said. She completely concurred. But what you just said, I don't think that's a word. The old woman nodded. That proves it. Oh, yes. I could tell you were bookish, I have to confess. And as you can see, I've got just what you need. From now on, my girl, you'll have plenty to read. For days, Franny lived in a book lover's dream, words in a seemingly infinite stream. What Puggly's great-granny had told her was true. She had mountains to read, and all of it new. The woman had lived an incredible life. There were soarings of joy. There were crashes of strife. There were lyrical poetry, tales within tales, mystery, horror. It had them in bales. Franny had never had so much to read. The hoary old crone was prolific indeed. Yet something was missing. She wasn't sure what, but Franny could feel it down deep in her gut. It wasn't a book that was making her blue. It wasn't a what. In fact, was a who. The person who tugged at the back of her mind was her father, of course. She had left him behind. Although she was happy to settle in Spud, a strong sense of longing was haunting her blood. My father, she thought, I hope he's all right. Perhaps I should visit him later tonight. Ironically, as she was having this thought, Puggly came running, looking rather distraught. Francesca, she said, there's a man at the moat. He's dressed in the strangest, most curious coat. Yet the outfit is somewhat familiar to me. I wore one myself to a certain degree. It's a coat made of leaves, but it's crawling with bugs. And his pants, they're all mossy and slimy with slugs. He has the things crawling all over the place. In fact, there's so many, you can't see his face. Slugs? Asked Francesca. And slimy as well? Disgusting. I can only imagine the smell. True, Puggly said, but there's also the sound. He's ranting and raving and stomping the ground. His behavior, quite frankly, has left me perplexed, and whoever he is terribly vexed. Okay, said Francesca, this might sound naive, but Puggly, why don't you just ask him to leave? Because, Puggly answered, what else could I do? This stranger, he says he's related to you. When he said that, I assumed he was mad, but you know what he told me? He said he's your dad. Yes, it would seem that King Dandy was there. He still remained wigless without any hair, but his clothes were exactly as Puggly explained. They were sloppy and slimy and stinky and stained. "My daughter," he called to the ramparts above. "Are you there? I've been such a dullard, my love. I may have been king, I might have been chief, but for ages I've given you nothing but grief. But once you were gone, I knew it was true. What matters the most? Oh, Franny, it's you. So I might have been slow, but now I can see. Pajamas with boats, they're okay with me." In the Spudlian turret, Francesca was there. She smiled from its balcony up in the air. She was happy to hear what her father had said. She just hoped he hadn't gone soft in the head. "Daddy," she called to him down by the moat. She suddenly had a great lump in her throat. From out of one eye came the drip of a tear. "I missed you," she sobbed. "I'm so glad you're here." Then turning to Puggly and beaming a grin, she said, "It's my father. You must let him in." "I would," Puggly answered, with a bit of a scowl, "but his clothes, let's face it, Francesca, they're foul." When Franny heard this, she was rather dismayed. "Puggly," she said, "you're wrong, I'm afraid. We must let him in. I mean, isn't it clear? Have you really not spotted the irony here? Are you truly prepared to deny his request for no better reason than how he is dressed?" Remember how they made fun of Puggly? And now he's kind of doing the same thing. Puggly thought about this. He could see she was right. He felt a bit guilty and even contrite. He yelled to his guards, "The kingship awaits! Lower the drawbridge and open the gates." They heaved at the lever, and turning the crank, the drawbridge was cast to the opposite bank. The king crossed the moat at a lumbering trot, dripping with mushrooms and fungus and rot. Delighted Francesca felt almost sublime. He leapt down the steps, going 2 at a time. She welcomed the king with a cozy embrace, but ended the hug with a slug on her face. "This is unpleasant," she said with a sigh, when she noticed the creature just under her eye. It clung to her cheek like a silvery drip. It crawled down her nose to the top of her lip. She put up her hand with no lack of aplomb and peeled it away with a finger and thumb. Without even an ew or an ick or a bleck, she returned it to the king on the side of his neck. "You realize," she said, "you are covered in dirt. There's more bugs on your back than actual shirt? And I nearly just suffered a slug up my nose. So tell us, why are you wearing those clothes?" Dun, dun, dun. Okay, tomorrow, chapter 12, Spreading the Love.